Welcome to today's Table Talks. My name is Scott Kappelman, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Tyce Lawbinger and Clark McGehee. We have been working to get ready to begin to record this for over an hour because we've had such good discussions. But since we've had a chance to laugh and have a good time, Clark, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I went home yesterday and got the chance to speak for a little youth event in Franklin County, Meadville, Mississippi. And I drove back this morning. So I had about a 3.5 hour drive this morning, but I still feel great. I got coffee in Brookhaven, stopped in Brookhaven, got some coffee, and I'm feeling good. I'm ready to do this. I will say I ate a little too much sugar on the way here. I haven't had any real breakfast, but I had like some nerds and a coffee. So I am a little jittery.
Tyce, maybe that was why Clark's last comment before we started recording.
It was wild.
Was a little wild as he had too much sugar and coffee this morning.
I think that could be it.
We won't tell what it was.
But he doesn't even know if he believes himself on it. So
yeah, I don't. We had some controversy going on before the podcast.
We did.
Maybe we'll make a table talk eventually about it.
Maybe so. Tyce, how are you?
I'm doing great.
You had a long weekend.
Very long weekend. Went to one of my friend's weddings. He was one of my groomsmen. Went to his. It was beautiful. It was in the Indianapolis State House. But it was long. I tell you what, we took hours and hours of pictures. But it was good.
2.5 hours worth of pictures.
2.5 hours of pictures, yeah. And then
that you were involved in.
That I was involved in.
That's impressive.
And then they did the wedding in the morning, and then they drove away, but they did a fake exit, circled the State House for 3 blocks. Like they blocked around it 3 times, and then they came back, and then we had the reception from 3 to 8 p.m. So it was just all morning in Clark's face. All morning at the wedding, but and then till nighttime with the reception.
And then you had to drive home, which was a long way.
The next morning, yeah. But I mean, it was just amazing. I couldn't. We're gonna record another talk about hospitality, and I'll get into it more there. But.
Okay.
Oh, cool!
That's
I'm
great.
excited.
All right, very good. All right, so let's talk today about our topic: is going into debt okay? And that's our main topic for the day. So, did anyone teach either one of you about money as you were growing up, or did you learn most of what you know by observation? Clark, how would you answer that?
I probably learned mostly by observation. My parents gave me a what's it called, an allowance every month for doing chores and that kind of thing. And the allowance would never be so much, or even really close to it, that I could get anything really of substantial value with just 1 week's worth of allowance. So that kind of taught me, even without them necessarily telling me, that taught me, hey, you're going to have to save if you want to get something that's kind of cool, something that you're really wanting, because the allowance was like $10 a month or something. So it was like you weren't just going to be able to walk away with what you wanted for 1 month's worth of work. So by observation, but there was probably some intentionality behind it that they wanted me to learn. So
okay. Tyce?
I'd say both, by observation and by being taught. I mean, my parents would tell me all the time that money would burn a hole in my pocket. I just couldn't stand to have it in my hands. I had to get rid of it. And so there was a lot of teaching. And then they've told me stories about just how they handled being newlyweds and having a child. And this is before I even got married. And they're pretty open about how it used to be. I don't know. Growing up, I might have just not cared enough to ask, or they did tell me I didn't care enough, but I didn't really know how our finances worked through middle school, high school, but that was more through observation, I feel like.
Yeah. I would say my parents had some conversations with us about money periodically, but I did get an allowance from time to time. I can't remember if it was super consistent, but I think they were probably more interested in me learning work ethic than they were me learning how to manage money with my allowance money that I would receive.
That's a good point.
The best lesson that I do remember is my parents gave me $20 once when I was probably in the first, second, or third grade. A friend of mine was going to Marine Life. We lived in Gulfport, Mississippi, and Marine Life was a fun kid thing to do. They gave me a $20 bill that was supposed to buy my admission and the meal maybe we were going to eat while we were there, but they expected me to bring the change back, and I did not understand. And so I spent the entire $20 on souvenirs in addition to the ticket and the lunch. So I came home with no money and all these junk souvenirs. And I didn't realize at the time $20 in that time period for my parents was a big thing. So they needed the change back, and I'd wasted it. And so that was a day I got a real strong lesson.
There we go.
In money management. And that's the most visible reminder of money management that I ever had in my childhood.
Yeah, core memory for you, huh?
After that, when they gave me money to go somewhere, I always brought back change.
There we go.
So it was a good lesson.
Yeah.
All right. How did your parents handle money or debt? Since our main topic today is going into debt okay? Did your parents talk a little bit about debt, or could you see just by observation they believed in debt? Any thoughts on that? Tyce, let's start with you.
I mean, debt by necessity, I would say. Now, some people would hear that and say, well, the only debt you'd get in debt by necessity is just your house. Well, for a while, it was 4 kids, and only my dad worked on a preacher's salary. So sometimes debt by necessity is like we had to pay on our credit card to get groceries. So that's just debt by necessity is what I would say. They were never buying things that we didn't need. Like it was always count the cost of what you're buying, but debt by necessity is okay.
Clark, you agree with that or have a different outlook?
Well, they really just didn't talk about it, honestly. So
you really didn't know?
No, I'm reading this question and I'm thinking, I don't even know if they're in debt. I don't know if they're not. I mean, we don't ever talk about really finances at home. So
yeah, I would say the most I got into debt was with COVID, and we got all of the checks, the stimulus checks, and all of our cars got paid off. And I just remember like hearing my friends, oh man, we got like my parents gave me part of the stimulus check and I bought blah, blah, blah. But my parents were like, no, like we have been blessed with this money. We're going to pay off all of our debt that we can with it. So.
Well, growing up in a preacher's house myself, I had the same experience. I think my parents didn't go into debt necessarily just to go in debt to get things they wanted. It was debt of necessity.
Yeah.
Because my dad was a pastor, my mom was a teacher, and then he was going to seminary for a lot of the time period when I was a child. So between tuition, trying to pay for 3 kids, and neither one of them making much money. They just were trying to survive from week to week and day to day. So it was probably debt by necessity. But I do think my parents today are much more money conscious. They're in a better position. They're both retired, but they've paid off their house. They are very much money conscious, more so than I've ever seen them, which is kind of exciting to see.
Yeah, that's
the
good.
end result after getting out of debt finally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing.
I'll say this just to cover my tracks a little bit. My mom could listen to this episode and say, Clark, we talked about it all the time.
I am worried about that. Like, I am also worried about that because I know my family did great. I had no problems at all.
Yeah,
They're
if it wasn't
fantastic,
important to me when I was a teenager, I probably don't remember it. So, so I'll cover my tracks a little bit there. But
okay, so what about personal experiences? We're going to move away from our parents and what they taught us, but into personal experiences. Have you had personal experiences with debt, and how did that impact you in that season?
Good.
I actually have personal experiences with that for the very first time within the last month. So our car rental company forced us to use a credit card when Annabeth and I went to Wyoming. We took a recent vacation, and they forced us to use a credit card. I still don't know why that is, but we just had to use a credit card. So I saw my credit score go down just from taking the loan. I said, what on earth? I was like, what happened? So this last time was the only time I've ever had any experience with that, but we're paying it off like quickly.
Yeah.
So,
I do, and so student loans for me, and I'm paying them off, and it does directly affect us. Now, it directly affects us because we are not paying the minimum. We're paying much more than the minimum, and so it does affect because we're thinking about houses, we're thinking about kids, we're thinking about whatever, and we got to get that. I am probably a little more apt to make sure I get paid off before Brooklyn, but Brooklyn also hates that I even have student loan debt, so it's a balance.
yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Kelly's dad and mom were gracious enough to pay her college, so she didn't have any college debt. I had to pay my way through college. I went to community college and had scholarships, and then when I got to Mississippi College, I had some loans for the middle 2 years, sophomore and junior year. My senior year, I ended up with enough scholarship money because I lived at home to cover that. So I had those 2 years in the middle that I had to pay off once we got married. But now my parents did buy me a car, but they made me make payments on that car. And so I did get a little bit of an experience of, now they paid for it and I was paying them back, essentially is how that worked.
Yeah.
But once Kelly and I got married and she got pregnant, she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So we decided to use all the resources we had to pay off my student loans. So by the time Cardi Beth was born, we were debt-free. Now, we were living in a parsonage, so we didn't have a house payment.
Yep.
So currently, the only thing we're in debt to is our current house payment because we bought a house in 2005. But we're trying to pay that off as quick as we can.
That's great.
So that's our only debt is the mortgage. Otherwise, we're debt-free. All right, let's talk about scriptures that might be helpful as it relates to debt, because we do live in a society where debt is pretty rampant, and most people don't really look at debt as something that's maybe anti-scripture.
Right.
But the scripture's got a good bit to say about this subject.
Scripture does a lot.
It does. And
dive in.
Yeah, so whenever I study for these table talks, most of my studying comes from me listening to other podcasts that maybe address it directly, maybe they address it kind of indirectly, but that's how I usually like to do my studies. And then I'll read articles and such as well. But there's not been that much that I've found of people who are truly diving in. Now, there's a lot of Christians out there who have finance podcasts that are helping you out from a Christian perspective, but I've never seen anybody really tackle the scriptures. So I'm excited to get to this part of it here. I'll start with Romans 13:8, which says, "Do not owe anyone anything except to love one another, for the one who loves another has fulfilled the law." So we can kind of flesh some of Romans 13:8 out through the readings of the other scriptures, but I would get started with that.
Well, let's kind of put that in context. The Romans 13 section that you're reading from has to do with Christian citizenship and how we're to live in a world that may not be Christian. And I think it is interesting that there's the reference there to be in debt to no one.
Right.
Now, we had a discussion before this started being recorded as to did that mean no mortgage, or which in the first century, I don't know how mortgage type issues work anyway.
Yeah.
But I do think the general principle is very true that we should not be in debt to anyone other than to love people in the name of Christ.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the verse before, verse 7 says, "Pay your obligations to everyone, taxes to those you owe taxes, tolls to those you owe tolls, respect to those you owe respect, and honor to those you owe honor." And then it says, "Do not owe anyone anything except to love one another."
Right. So I think it's a really interesting verse. Tyce, you got one for us?
Yeah, I got two. So one of them you have on here, Proverbs 22:7. "The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender." And so it just gets into, hey, whenever you're indebted to someone, there's nothing. Like, you've got to pay that person back, or else they can, because at any point they can call back your loan. Especially at that time, like, there probably wasn't as well established, hey, these are set monthly payments. It's just,
right.
Hey, I'm ready. Like, give me that.
Yeah, that person could come at any time.
Yep. And so then you get into Proverbs 6:1-5, and this doesn't necessarily, the context doesn't directly say money. I'll start in verse 2. "If you are snared by the words of your mouth, caught in the words of your mouth, then do this, my son, and save yourself. For you have come into the hand of your neighbor. Go hastily and plead urgently with your neighbor. Give your eyes no sleep and your eyelids no slumber." And so just talking about, hey, once you're in debt, because you're indebted to this person and that you are now essentially a slave to them, don't rest until it's paid off, if possible. Now, like, if you owe them, I don't know, 60 bales of hay, you got to wait until the end of the season. But when the hay comes in. Yeah, when the hay comes in, that should be your first priority.
Clark, you got any more scriptures you want to throw out at this point?
No, I think I'm good.
I'm going to just read one more, because I think when you are a slave to the lender, obviously one of the things that's happening in our current culture is we might have a tendency to say, well, I'm just not going to pay that debt back. And even if I have bad credit rating or I lose a few things, they come and foreclose on my house or whatever, that's fine. I'm just not going to pay my debt. But Scripture also talks about we have an obligation. It's Psalm 37, verse 21. "The wicked person borrows and does not repay, but the righteous one is gracious and giving." And the implication is the righteous person is the one who's going to fulfill the obligations they made on the front end and repay. It's the wicked person who says, I'll just borrow, and if I can't pay it back, so be it. And that's not the appropriate response as a believer. So I think what we're seeing just in a general way, and y'all can dive in and add to this, is that the scripture's pretty strong that we should not be in debt
Right.
under any circumstance, if at all possible.
I think that that's what it gets at, which is a tough thing for our society to reconcile, I think.
Yes.
Because we were talking before the podcast started, and you shared that you were like, we wouldn't even have a house had we not taken a mortgage on it. And I said the exact same thing. We don't have a house now, but I said we definitely wouldn't have one if we weren't able to take a mortgage on it. So
that's the next question.
Right, that leads
is
us
it
to our next
ever
question.
acceptable to go into debt? And the ones that I scribbled down for us to think about, is it ever acceptable to go into debt to buy a car? Is it ever acceptable to go into debt to go to college? Is it ever acceptable to purchase a house by going into debt? Those are the big three, because I think you might get your car when you're in high school, perhaps. Then you've got to decide about college. Most people can't always afford to go to college debt-free.
Right.
And then at some point when you get married, you want to buy a house. So is it ever acceptable in those instances? And then, Tyce, you've got an extra one you're going to throw in for us to think about as well.
Yeah.
I think this is a hard subject. I mean, so I shared that I did a little bit of research before we got to this. The main kind of consensus that I got was that you don't want to go into debt that you know is a poor decision, but that's a little bit more of a practical life rule than it is really a Christian idea. You know, he was saying that if you're paying, going into debt to go to college, well, that should have a payoff, right? You should be able to go and get a degree that then helps you to be able to pay off that debt. Or the same thing is true if you're not going to college, but maybe you're a carpenter and you have to buy a lot of tools. Well, you go into debt to buy those tools, but you have a plan and a purpose to pay it back off. But again, that's a little more practical life help than a Christian
maybe biblical perspective,
right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's wrong. I mean, it is very good advice, but
I'll give an illustration. Kelly and I, when we got married and we started having children, once we got to our second child, which would be Eli, we transitioned away from a car to a minivan, but we were very unwise and we went and bought a brand new minivan. And I can almost assure you that both of us, as soon as we drove it off the lot and got down the street, probably 5 miles, almost back to our house, we both were thinking, why did we do this?
oh man, yeah.
And it was not a wise decision at all. Now, we ended up paying it off, and at the time, the interest rate was 0.9.
Oh, that's great then. Yeah.
So it was less than 1%, which is unheard of.
amazing.
Yeah.
So we really didn't pay that much interest, and we did pay it off, and we kept it probably 11 or 12 years, the car total,
right.
for the time that we used it. But we both agreed after buying that car, we would never do that again. And so we have bought a couple of used cars along the way early in our marriage after that, where we ended up having small payments for a season. But in the last 10 years or more, we've not bought any cars except by cash, because we just realized if we couldn't pay for cash the car that we needed, and we weren't going to buy it. And that has been a game changer for us, is to be able to buy cars with cash and not have those car payments hanging over your head. Going back to the verse from Proverbs,
Yeah.
the person who's in debt is a slave to the lender. We just said we're not doing that anymore. So we drive
Right.
old cars, and we're happy with that, but they're all paid for.
And even those life practical things that I said, they can honestly have Christian ideas because of that one verse. The person who's owes is a slave to the lender, right? And you want to, if that's true, then you want to get rid of your debt as fast as possible. So you can take life practical things and apply it, because we know Scripture tells us that for the most part, if at all possible, is going to be wrong. So nothing wrong with those life applications. But, I'm a big statistic guy. I'm going to let you get to your verse, Tyce, but big statistic guy. And I saw, as I was studying for this podcast, that TransUnion says the average debt for a U.S. citizen is $6,000, as your credit card debt, $6,434.
That's
And
per citizen.
per citizen. And according to Forbes, the average monthly payoff is around $110. So taking even the lowest interest rate that credit cards offer, which was an average of about 21%, that took a long time. I think it was like 8 years to pay off the debt if you're paying monthly, assuming no new purchases. And you ended up paying, I think, $3,000 extra that were not even a part of that original 6,000 that you owed. So we see Proverbs, what was it, 22:7 played out in real life. I mean,
All right, so Tyce, you got some thoughts on this too.
I do. I think I'm going to take a little bit different approach, and there might be some ridicule for this. But I go to 1 Timothy 3, qualifications for an overseer, and chapter 3, verse 4 says he must manage his own household well, with all dignity, keeping his children submissive. And so, is it acceptable to go in debt? I would say yes for your family. Now, does this mean that you need to go in debt because you want a boat? No. Does this mean you go into debt because you want sides with all your meals? Or do you want like I want Doritos? No, you can eat rice and beans and you'll be okay. But I think we have a responsibility to our family first before we have a responsibility to our bank accounts. And so I would say if you are going to manage your own household well, that means you don't go into unnecessary debt. You're not going into this place where, hey, like I'm in so much debt that it's crippling my family and I can't manage my family. But if your family is suffering because you refuse to go into debt, then you are not managing well. And there are times and places where it is acceptable to go into debt.
So would you use that as a potential, I don't want to say justification, but it might be what leads you to buy a house. But the best way for me to take care of my family and manage them is for us to be in a house instead of 5 kids being in one apartment room and us being in the other.
Or like buying your kid the inhaler he needs instead of just like doing these home remedies if you just breathe slow or through a bag or something. Like there are times where you do just for the best of your family, but never the best of yourself. I would say as God has called us to be suffering servants, because Christ is the suffering servant. And so if we're going to do this for God and it's just us, then maybe it is best to suffer for a time. But if you have a wife, if you have kids, if you have a husband, we're called to care for them first before our bank accounts.
How do you feel about that, Clark?
I've got to think about it. I'll say that, yeah. I like the idea that you take care of your family, but to play devil's advocate a little bit, would it be best taking care of your family to not go into debt? You know, in the long run, are you taking better care of those that are under your stewardship?
Yeah. So as he talked about this, and we didn't have any discussion about this particular concept before we started, I would say that in the case of health, going into debt to take care of a child's health needs could be a legitimate reason.
I suppose it would be pretty hard to say that that's honestly not.
I'm going back to our oldest daughter, Carly Beth, has a autoimmune disease, and at the worst of it, when she was in high school, we knew we needed some specialized care, and it was going to take some specialized medicine to get her back on track to where she could get it back under control and be able to function. And Kelly and I both agreed, regardless of what it costs, if we have to take out a loan for her to get the best care because her health is jeopardizing her life, we will do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, we were able to work through it and not have to go into debt for that purpose. But if we had have, we would have done it.
Yeah, because I think that leads to Jesus' teaching on the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 7, verse 9. Or which of you, if a son asked him for bread, would give him a stone?
Yeah.
Or if he asked for a fish, would give him a serpent? And so while this is talking about gifts, we are called, like, who would give their son a stone if they're hungry?
Yeah.
And if our son is just in this point, not an American hungry, but like a true starvation, take out the loan. Like,
I agree with you. I'm not going to look at him and say, nah,
chew on this rock for a while.
Like that.
Like, here's a piece of gum, chew on that for a while.
That would be like qualifications to fire me, probably.
All right, I think one of the things that we probably have some college students watching this, we've got a lot of college students in our church, and I think there are college students who really struggle with this. Should I go to a certain college or really a graduate school and go into debt? Maybe they got through college, but they want to go to graduate school or a professional school to be a doctor, nurse, whatever, PA, whatever those things might be, and they're really struggling. Should I go into debt? Yeah. But Clark, you were saying there is an outcome. Eventually, if you get the degree, you can get a job to pay that debt back. So there's a benefit on the backside to help you cover the debt.
Yeah, I would just say truly, count the cost. Like, really, it's like Jesus talks about too, like who's going to build without counting the cost first. And just to be aware that the Bible does give lots of warnings about going into debt. So if you choose to do this, like make a plan to pay it off. I think just purely an awareness of how stressful the Bible puts, like how much stress the Bible puts on debt is going to help a lot of people in that decision, just to be aware that, hey, there's a pretty big warning about it. So,
all right, well, that leads to the next question. What encouragement would we offer someone who is in debt currently?
Yeah. So I added to
I
the
see
list.
that. You just added something, which is really good.
Yeah. So I've heard pretty incredible testimonies, and let me preface this. I'm not saying that this is for sure going to happen, but I've heard great testimonies of people who have needed to pay, let's say $500 the next day, and they take that time, they take that night, and they pray, Lord, just provide it. We trust in you. Just provide this money. And then sure enough, there they are. The money has been provided by the Lord. I'm not saying that's going to happen for you for sure. I'm not teaching the prosperity gospel. I don't want to do any of that. But I think the Holy Spirit just helped me to remember that story just now, because for me, I love finances. I love budgeting. My first instinct is not to usually say, let's pray about this. It's how can I take control of the situation and make sure that I am doing everything perfectly right, when what we should do first is come to the Lord in prayer, because he has it all figured out.
Can I chase that with a follow-up story?
Absolutely.
So in the throes of when Cardi Beth was most sick, we did have to take her to Jacksonville to the Mayo Clinic to get some specialized care. That trip cost us a good bit of money. Our church family was super kind and gracious to give us some money to help cover the expenses of the hotel and the gas and food and things like that. But there was a bill coming for $1,000 that we knew. And we prayed about it, my wife more so than me, because she's the prayer warrior in our family. And literally one day I went to the mailbox to get the mail, and there was an envelope in the mailbox with a verse on the outside about God's provisions. And inside was 10 $100 bills.
Wow.
That literally covered the bill that we knew was coming. It was like $996.89.
Wow, that's crazy.
And we had $1,000 in the mailbox. And to this day, Kelly would tell you the Lord provided that because we prayed about it.
Right.
So your point's well taken.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And there was nothing else on the envelope, like no markings. We have no idea to this day who put it in there.
I actually, you've told me that story before. I had you in mind and me saying that just now.
So it's good.
But that's amazing.
Your next point that we have on this is establish a budget. I think that's huge. And not just, so your mind typically goes to a financial budget. How can I manage my money well? But I think you also need a timesheet budget, and just, hey, I think to college and people who are like, how do I do this master's program? Well, you can either go into full debt, or you can, like, I might lose some time, but I can be a TA, or I can be a graduate assistant. And that's going to take a lot more time, but you do have to budget your time out well, and because you don't let your eyes have rest until, as Proverbs says, until you pay it off. And sometimes paying it off just means I have to work with no money. It's just someone else is going to cover it for me.
No, that's a really good point. What's it worth it to you? You know, what's it worth to you? Like, could you DoorDash to someone before? You know, is it worth that, or go be a waiter or a waitress?
Or could you extend the degree an extra semester or two, so you could work extra hours to make the money that might offset the debt
That's
that
a
you're
great
going to
point.
incur?
Good job, Tyce.
That's good. I like that. So establish a budget plus a timesheet to go with that. I would encourage you, third in our list, to give to God first. Don't withhold from God just because you're paying off debt. The Lord's the one who's provided your health that allows you to go to work, and the Lord provides the money that you're earning, and it belongs to Him anyway. So give to Him first.
Yeah. Now, I know we're going long, but I do have a story for this, and it helps to show that we aren't teaching prosperity gospel. A few months ago, I
love those stories.
A few months ago, I was about to make a student loan payment, and I realized I had not tithed first. And I was like, Lord, I know I'm going to do them both. Like, I was just already on the student loan website. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do the student loan first. I felt convicted and really give to God first. And so I went over to the church website, tithed. And then when I logged into the student loan account, it was zero. I was like, oh my gosh, my student loan's paid off. I thought it was just the greatest thing.
I'm like,
wow,
story.
Lord is so great.
A sad
and
story.
so it is a sad story. And so I went a whole month assuming my student loan was paid off because I had not heard anything. I contacted, no one said anything. Then a month later, I finally called again, and I actually got someone to answer, and they're like, "No, we just sold your loan, and now there's someone else that owes it." But
I didn't know this.
Yeah, but we didn't contact.
Oh, you didn't know this?
No, I thought it was paid.
No. So my student loan place just sold my loan to someone else, and they said we were not able to contact everyone. So what we did for those who we can't contact, we just deferred your payment and you didn't have to pay anything that month until we could reach out.
So you're still in debt.
I'm still in debt, yeah.
Oh, Tyce, this just breaks my heart.
No,
But it's one of those things
episode.
like just the conviction was there, like, hey, like give God first. And that's what I did. And I thought it was going to be great, but ended up not. But I'm still happy I gave first, and just like I acted on a conviction, and I wasn't in sin because of that. And like the Lord's still providing, like we're still able to pay into our student loans. It wasn't.
I've told this story several times.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
I need to go back and recount to the people that I've spoken with that Tyce's loan is not paid.
I'm so sorry.
Because I was so excited for you.
Yeah, and I probably just
Brooklyn.
forgot because it took a month for me to figure it out.
Oh, that's so. But I do appreciate this story of giving to God first.
Yeah.
That came out of that. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get the last or two of these things knocked off real quick. We're not financial advisors, but
No, we're not.
We have a couple quick little tips for you. You could save up $1,000 emergency fund.
And that's a Dave Ramsey tip.
Yeah, that's just a Dave Ramsey tip. Similar, you could have 3 to 6 months that you have that of your income that you're getting. So if you lost your job, you can kind of have that as a backup. And then also just pay off that smallest loan first. Like whatever you have, that is the smallest loan. Say, okay, I'm going to get rid of that one right now, and then go to the next one, and then go to the next one. So
And it'll give you a little bit of a sense of victory
It will,
as you
100%,
pay off a
yeah.
small one, and then you can go to the bigger ones as you go. I have 3 questions I would encourage you as you're watching this to ask yourself before every purchase. These are just simple. Number 1, do I need this or do I want this? That's the first question. Second question, is there a way to get this without spending as much money? Because our first tendency is to do it wherever we find it. And it might be we can find it at a thrift store. We can ask a neighbor who has the same thing that we're trying to buy, and they might not be using it, and they might say, yeah, I'll just give this to you for $10. And so there
same thing for the minivan story.
Yeah, the minivan. That's right. We could have found another minivan. We just went and did something that was very unwise. And then the third is, would God be pleased with this purchase because I am his steward? And so every time we make a purchase, in a sense, even though God has entrusted us with that money, it still is his money. And so we want to be good stewards of what he's entrusted to us. So kind of bring your thoughts around what would God be pleased with in this purchase. So those are 3 questions I would give to you.
Right.
Final things that I want us to hit on real quick. If you're not in debt, what are some things that you can do when you're not in debt that you might not be able to do if you are in debt?
Right.
Did y'all have any additional things besides this that?
No, I like your list. If you
Yeah,
wanna hit 'em off.
I would just challenge the people to ask themselves that same question. We're going to give a couple here, but ask yourself that question. What are some things that you can do for yourself or maybe for God's kingdom, ideally for God's kingdom, that you could do if you weren't in debt? So,
Yeah, I think you can be more benevolent when you do see legitimate needs, really within your church. To start there, you can be benevolent because you've got the resource to do it. You can be generous and do some things that you normally would not do, that are just kind gestures of generosity to other people. They might not even need benevolence. They just may be in a spot where they need a little help to give them that push to get to the next level financially. So you can just be generous. You can go on mission trips. Sometimes people I've heard this many times. I can't go on the trip because I don't have enough money. I would love to go, but I can't go because I don't have enough money. Well, if you're out of debt, you can go. You don't ever have to say that. And then let me go back to generosity before I leave that. Our son Eli is in a good position as an engineer. He's a single guy. He's not married, so he's able to save money. This summer, he has opened up his home to the student minister intern that just served their church for the summer because the guy didn't have a place to live.
yeah.
So Eli's letting him live rent-free at his house because he's in a good position financially. And that's generosity. That's just being generous. And, hey, come live with me. And then the final is you can do some travel. Travel's something I enjoy doing, so you can do some travel. Any other thoughts that y'all want to throw in there before we finish up? I know we've gone long.
Yeah, I'll just say this real quick. We're still called to benevolence and generosity, like we said a second ago.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Even when we're under debt. But I will add this. We're called to give with a cheerful heart, and it is a lot easier to give with a cheerful heart when you don't have the weight of debt weighing down on you. So
the debt can rob
the
you of
cheerfulness.
the cheerfulness.
Could. I'm not saying that it does for
that's
everybody.
right.
But
That's good.
Yep.
Any other thoughts, Tyce?
No, I think that was really good.
All right. Well, we're so glad you've joined us today. We are sorry that it went so long, but I hope it's been helpful. We do hope you, if you are in debt, you can get out of it as quickly as possible so you can do the things that the Lord wants you to do for his kingdom. In the meantime, share this with some other people. Give us good ratings and reviews, and then come back and join us for the next Table Talks. Have a great day.